Well, do you remember what this is? I hope so. I am pretty sure I remember what this is. I think what this is, since it's about 10 o'clock, it's a little bit late. I'll explain that in a minute or two or sometime in the future. And I'm pretty sure it's a Monday. So if my memory serves me right, that's a funny thing to say when you're old, right? It's like, right. This is Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons. And I've been away from this for a long time because we were traveling, went across the ocean and back. So I'm a little bit jet lagged after getting back. I'm not sure you would notice the difference between being jet lagged and just, normal. But there it is. And I'm a little bit late because I am also dog watching. And the dogs did not do what they needed to do when they needed to do it. And so I was out there with the two of them doing my best to get them to do their duty. One of them did, the other one didn't. So I might need to take a break a little bit earlier in the stream to take care of that. Or I'll put it like this. You can kind of see what that is anyway. This isn't what I'm going to be working on today, at least not at this beginning of the stream. So yes, it's back. Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons is back. And I might do one tiny bit of painting today. I have to look at options. I have to look at options for a flaw in the Savoia S.21 that I made happen by not being careful and then not fixing it correctly before I left on my trip. So there will be that. But basically what I'm going to be doing is, like it says there, I'm going to be putting tiny bits of tape on a little piece of plastic. It's going to be arduous, teeny tiny little bits of tape to prepare the windscreen for the Savoia S21 for spray painting. And you'll see that in a while. Just looking at this brush, like being permanently greened. Oh, well, it's a pretty good brush. I really like it, especially for like dry brushing. It's got a nice even bristles. They don't stick out all over the place. They're kind of stiff, so that you can just barely touch the surface. But now it's green from the last time. I'm going to have to do some deep cleaning. Yeah, I've been rethinking my solvent issue. For the most part, I'm working with acrylics, and water cleans them pretty well, and it's, non-toxic and all of that, at least when it isn't full of paint. But sometimes there are paints that just don't come out in the water, and I've been using isopropyl alcohol, and that works fairly well, but not extremely well. So I'm probably going to switch from isopropyl alcohol to lacquer thinner, which is a more aggressive solvent. And when I tested it before, it cleaned brushes pretty well. So this is what I'm not going to be working on unless maybe later in the stream. This is the maxi version of me. This is Ulseth Ralph, the Furbog Fighter. And the Furbog Fighter is currently in the show, the D&D show, dressed in a special magical set of mithril plate, which unfortunately has been damaged and so doesn't have all of its magical qualities. But I have a tool that I'm looking for that I'll be using to repair it. This was a test patch of different ways of painting the armor. Okay, and it included a metallic base with a green wash over it. I even went out of my way to spend a whole bunch of money on different washes and inks to see how they would work. And the option, this was playing around with the cloak, what to do with the cloak. But I have instructions about what to do with that later. So I tried this. This is an alternative, which is to put a green base coat on with a metallic over it. And those didn't work. Okay, you can see that didn't work. So after doing 2 different colors of metallics with 3 different overcoats, what it turned out is that the best one is actually gloss green paint thinned down. So it's not even made as a wash. This one, which is a speed paint, almost worked, but the color isn't quite right. It's a little bit too green, too yellow, a little bit more yellow than this. It's just a little more blue. So when I get around to working on this again, I'm going to be painting almost this whole thing is just going to be covered in aluminum paint and then washed with thinned down gloss green. And I hope that works. And then there's a whole lot of detail on here, that'll be painted either silver or gold or both. I got the flaming longsword. I think that came out pretty well. Okay, I think that came out pretty well. I have to decide whether to do anything with the blade or not. It's a magical blade, so it should stay pretty clean. The offhand, I thought was done, but then I remembered that in the game, in the show, which you should watch because it's an amazing thing. Watch the Dungeons and Dragons show put on by Dyson Dungeons. You must do that. And then you would understand that this is not quite right because the offhand, Seth Ralph's offhand, is an ice weapon. It's got and so I'm going to put a blue wash on this, okay, blue, so that it looks icy. And I'm going to try somehow or other to get it like darker and then lighter. I'll see how that goes. It's another one of those things where if it goes poorly, I can just repaint it and start over. So this is going to take a fair amount of work, but not today because I'm going back to the Savoia. So this guy is going to go up here. These are going to go there, wherever that is. This box is coming here. I need to hydrate. I brought something down to drink. Let's see. There it is. You can see behind me that one of our 3D printers is not here. It is across the hall in a better ventilated room because the filament that's being used puts off fumes that are not good to breathe. So it's in a room where people aren't breathing. It's not that you couldn't breathe if you were in the room. Okay, it's not an asphyxiation-inducing room or anything like that. No, it's just a room in which people aren't there. They aren't there, and because if they're not there, then they're not breathing in the room. So I don't want there to be any kind of misunderstanding about that. But that's in there because the filament that is being used in that printer does put off fumes that should not be inhaled. And so it's in a room where people aren't. I guess that makes sense. Well, let's see what's under here. There we are. This is in the top part of the Savoia S.21, the fuselage and the wing. And there's more done parts over there in the done box, which include the bottom of the fuselage. So this is pretty much done. But the thing is, if I flip this over, the wing goes on here, okay? But there's a gun sight. I think it's not really a gun sight, it's just an aiming stick That little black thing in there is like it just sticks through the windscreen and goes straight forward, and I'm supposed to aim along that. It's pretty primitive. And then there's the windscreen that goes on here. And I thought about installing the wing, but then I found that if I did that, that installing these two parts afterward would be difficult and quite difficult. So this is essentially done except for the windscreen and the gun sight and then final assembly. And then the engine goes on the top of this. You can see that I painted the stripes on, and they came out actually pretty well. They look a lot better than the decal would have if I just used the decal, because that would have just looked like a decal. This looks like it's painted on, and even though it's not perfect, I'd say it's like it's in the A range. It's definitely not. It might be an A minus, but it's definitely not bad. And the pontoon floats came out pretty well, and they're on there and they're not falling off. That's good. When this is all assembled, this whole thing sits on top of the fuselage, which has detailed interior. So I'm thinking for display, I thought about this, that when it actually comes time to display it, that I'm going to leave them separate. I'm going to set, once this wing is on and the engine is put on and all of that, I'm going to display it with this off the rest of the fuselage, because why go through all the work of assembling the fuselage and showing all of the detail and painting it and making it look actually definitely a work there on the inside of the fuselage. Why do all of that and then cover it up? And this has to be out of the dust somehow, so you can't just like be picking it up and taking it up, putting it back on and back and forth. So there's that. So the one thing that I'm not happy about is that you can just barely see it, but here there is a flaw right here in the paint. And what happened was, when I was gluing these on, these little struts, I got a little piece of I got some adhesive across here, and it marred the surface, and now there's this line, and I'm not sure. I can do one of three things. There, at least three. There might be more. One is to just leave it alone. It is on the bottom. Okay. The only time anyone would ever see this is if they picked it up and looked at it and said, "Oh, look, you got a flaw in the paint here," and that probably isn't going to happen. I can sand it out. Okay, it's a little bump there where the paint's all uneven. I think there's some adhesive that didn't come off. I could sand that out and either touch it up with a brush by putting little drops of paint on it, or I could give it a spritz of spray. Spraying it on would probably look better, but I'd have to really carefully mask like everything on Earth so that it didn't get red paint all over everything else. So I'm not sure which of those three I'm going to do. I don't like having that there, because it just shows. On the other hand, if you're going to have a flaw in the model, this is probably about the best place for it. So I don't know. I need to think about that. Otherwise, this is looking pretty decent. But this isn't what I'm working on today. How did this turn out? It sagged a little bit. Okay, this is the thing I'm going to be working on. So I can recover this. Hopefully I can recover later too. Whatever. We get a clean toothpick. Trying to set something aside without knocking anything over. It's always an interesting thing. I'm going to want one of these pointy toothpicks. And I'm going to want one of the not pointy toothpicks that I can use as a thing to kind of push down on the tape. So I've got this big collection of little sticks and partially used toothpicks that, you know, in a rational stream. Look at all these. Probably I would just throw them away, and get a new one because they're just toothpicks. But I didn't. I just set them in here. Just pulling them out to see what I've got here. There's all this stuff. It's like debris. Here I am poking around on debris. What I want is like this thing that I can use to push down on the tape to make sure that it's tight against the surface. Under here, carefully wrapped up, is the windscreen. And it's sprue. One thing you can say is that they wasted a lot of plastic there. Let me tell the camera person, camera 2, zoom in on the windscreen. Mm-hmm. Ooh, nice zooming. So that's the windscreen, and this is all the sprue, and you can see how much of this plastic is just waste. So if you look carefully, if it was on screen, there we go. Camera 2, you zoomed in, but then you wandered off. The windscreen, there is a frame. Okay, it goes around here. It's like slightly raised. It's true on the sides as well. Along the bottom and the side up here, it's slightly raised, and that represents a metal frame. I'm assuming it's metal, holding together the pieces of whatever transparent material this was made from. I don't know. I don't know if they had plexiglass then or not. And so what I need to do, and I'm going to talk about it so I actually don't get around to doing it, is I need to mask the part that is not going to be painted, okay, and leave exposed the bits that will be painted, and then spray it with red paint, and hopefully when I take the tape off, there'll be red paint on the frame and no red paint on the clear part. The other thing that I will probably do, even though it's not essential, is I'm probably going to paint the inside as well. Okay? Because, what is it, a scratch really, despite all of the care? There's always that. I mean, you can, if you look inside, you would see red paint on the outside and not on the inside, but the metal frame, is both inside and outside. So I'm going to try to mask both the inside and the outside and paint the frame both on the inside and the outside. So that's why I'm going to be using great, you couldn't see any of that, tiny little bits of tape, trying to get especially in the corners here, and with great difficulty, that's that little bit there where the V comes together. So it should take maybe a couple of months I don't know. We'll see. I did this on the Apollo, on the windows on the LEM. It was similarly shaped, and it's shaped similar to this, and about almost the same size. That was a little even more challenging because they were pieces of plastic cemented from the inside of the LEM, and the whole thing had to be painted. It had to be taped before the whole thing was painted, because I had to assemble the bits before it was painted. And then I had to take the tape off without pushing the window in, without detaching it. And fortunately, it worked. This doesn't have quite that same challenge. I do need to get it off of the sprue. And then while I'm doing this, I need to try to not drop it in a way where it goes flying off onto the floor, and not so much worried about it getting scratched as getting lost. I think I'm going to work over a paper towel. It's somewhat less bouncy than the cardboard. I'm going to have my head magnifier on the whole time too, because tiny bits. It'll be tiny bits. This is my tiny itsy bitsy little saw with extremely fine teeth that I use to cut things off of the sprue so that they don't break off and leave an indentation. This is not too bad. It's not too bad, but after I take it off, there'll be a little bit left on there that will have to be sanded off, but in a way that none of the sanding affects the clear bit. There, a little bit of sanding can happen right here, right along this edge here, where it's going to be painted red, but cleaning this up will be a challenge as well. It's good. So far, I haven't heard any howling or other signs of dog problems. That's good. Detached. Now I've got a huge chunk of clear plastic. Yay. Probably keep this for a reason that doesn't exist. I mean, you never know when you might need like a quarter of an inch of clear plastic tubing for a model. Just never know. So you let those things sit around. Just piling up. Until someone comes along and points out that you're being a hoarder and you need to stop. Okay, so there's this, see that bit of plastic there? That needs to come off. And it needs to come off in a way that doesn't mar anything more than the part that's going to be painted. I'm going to start with a needle file. I was just at the hobby shop before I went on this trip, and they had these like sanding sticks. I thought those look like they would be useful. And then I didn't buy one. They were too coarse. If they'd had one that was like an 800 grit or something. I might have gotten one. They were coarse, but this is where it would really be a handy thing to have because the little bits of sandpaper, the sanding stick would be like a little toothpick thing that I could control. But the sandpaper isn't going to be that. So I'm going to work on this in a way so that hopefully the file is always angled away from the plexiglass or glass or whatever material is supposed to be of the windshield. I think this is why, people who are professional modelers who sell models for thousands of dollars probably just fabricate their own, because all the parts in a plastic model come with a sprue. They're attached to sprues, and there's always an issue with it. And if it's just going to be painted, well, that's fine. You've seen that many times on this stream or any other modeling show. You can clean it off and sand it down, and it becomes invisible. But in this case, yeah, it mars the clear. This does need to be flat on the bottom, otherwise it's not going to sit on the model well. So it's really important that I get it off the bottom here. Worry about the side later, but this is the danger of doing this, as I'm discovering, is it's really easy to kind of rock it back and forth. I've done that before. And then the far sides are messed up. It's pretty close to being done. Yeah, that'll do. But then you can see that, if you can't see it. Camera 2, zoom in again, please. Right there. Sticking out just a little bit where the sprue is attached. I need to take that off so that it doesn't stick out. Probably, I can feel it. I don't know if it would actually show on the model. It'll be red on red, you know, so it might be pretty much invisible, but okay, I think that's good. So, yeah, this is the little piece of plastic that the title of this stream refers to. And these are going to become the tiny bits of tape. I've got 2 millimeter wide masking tape. That's pretty tiny. And some 3, which is, 1.5 times this. And the task is to get it right along these edges. That's not that hard. Getting the corner, nice clean corner, that's the problem. These are 90 degrees. That's okay. That's not as bad as this, where it's like getting the tape down to a point at an angle that matches that angle. That should be interesting. So I have, to assist me, this thing that I found that looks like a nail clipper that has angle and a really nice cutting edge. I'm going to use that. I've tried scissors and they don't work that well on this. And what is this? Something's on my face. Happens when you're old. You get there's stuff. I think I'll do the outside first. That's the most important part. And then I can use the tape on the outside. See, the outside has these raised edges, sort of slightly raised edges, that provide a guide for where the tape goes. And then once that's on, I can turn it over and use that as the guide for the tape on the inside. I think I'm going to try to do the hard part first. I'm going to try to do this. This corner. Try to get the tape in there. And I have a plan. I'm going to use the wider tape. It might be a little counterintuitive, but the plan is to get a piece of tape like that. Okay. And then cut it at the angle there, so that's covered, and then I can put a straight piece of tape across that. That's what I'm going to try to do. Actually, it's pretty funny. I folded over this piece of tape here, and zoom in again, camera 2. Zoom. Yeah, if that were focused, you could see that little angle there is almost exactly the right angle. But I think so. Why not? I'm going to cut at that angle. Probably should have my head magnifiers on for this. I really should, because then I would have a much better chance of seeing what's happening. I hope they're charged. Where are they? Oh, did I leave them upstairs? No, they're there. I don't know why they're there. They're supposed to be put away in their box. Maybe somebody else used them. I don't know. There. I know this always looks amazing, doesn't it? Lenses are filthy. Okay, well, what I'm going to do. I mean, that's really close. Pull this off and make it way longer than it needs to be, so I have a place to grip it. This, can you see any of this at all? Not really. Let me move the camera down. If I can keep it on camera, I don't know if I can or not. I'll try, and you can sort of see what I'm doing. Under magnification, the angle is not quite right to be more angled. It is surprisingly close to being just right. It's a dumb idea. I was pushing down on it to seal it. Just about snapped the part. Okay. Well, this makes this easier now because the angle here is about right. So I just need a piece of tape to go across here now. I'd probably use the excess. See, now you can see the tiny, insignificant, invisible flaws under magnification. So I keep saying this. In my case, at least, when the model is to be displayed, make sure no one gets within 18 inches of it. 18 inches, no closer. And that the light is not perfect. So it's just a little bit dim. And then tiny little flaws, like this little speck of tape right there. Might be an issue. So here, there is some tiny bits of tape on a little piece of plastic. Painting this with a spray. I'll try to be really careful about it. What I'm going to do is, because I don't want this, you can get too much paint on it and it can kind of like leak underneath the tape. So I'm going to spray at it. Just, okay. And it might take like 3 spritzes, but I don't want to saturate it and end up paint leaking. Okay, now I'll need to do this on the other side. So when I was a kid, I would have had this, okay? And I'd be trying to cut little pieces of this off, and then it wouldn't really adhere very well, and it would have been really difficult. So this itty bitty tape, it's pretty cool stuff. I dropped it. That would have been an issue if it had fallen on the floor. Not so much that it might have been broke now. See, the thing is, what happened here is that, let me see if the angle's right, but zoom in again, zoom, you can see it's rounded at the point. It's not pointed at the point. It's angled a little bit too much. It's too acute. Got a point to see what the angle's like. The windshield is much better defined on this side. What's on the other? They're not perfectly symmetric. Great, huh? Well, I'm going to leave this on here. I'm going to see what happens when I put this on. I was going to use a tool to do this, wasn't I? I was going to use a toothpick to push it down. Cutting this at a sharper angle because that little point there gets in the way. You have to clean that off. It's got tape stuck all over it. Excuse me. Well, other than actually the plastic part itself not being symmetric, this is looking okay. I need to do this. What I want here is a right angle. Actually, I'm going to try that. And it's just the other side. You can see as we zoom in again, I don't know, I can't tell if it's focused because my eyes don't focus there anyway, is that part there is going to be red. Why not use the tweezers? Well, that's a good question. Why am I not using a tweezers? Part of it is that the tape ends up sticking to the tweezers and not to anything else. And I found that to be the case. That's really annoying. I have to remember that I'm right-handed. That didn't go anywhere near where it was supposed to be. And it's just too much tape on the ends here. Actually, I can just wrap that around. No, it's not. That's not going to work. Okay. That was a bad idea. I was thinking of wrapping it around, but I have to tape the inside of it, and if it doesn't wrap exactly where it's supposed to be, then it becomes a liability and not a help. It's just wrong. We're looking at like fractions of a millimeter here. I have to clean some of this tape off of this clip, or else it's not going to clip. It's so weirdly asymmetric. So this side is wider than that. I'm looking at it and I can't tell which is right. It needs to be less. It needs to be closer to the edge. Yeah, that's better. Slight little repositioning there. Okay, now I need a piece to go across the bottom. Muttering to myself. It's always important to mutter nonsensically to oneself. Maybe I really do need tweezers. Okay, well, see if I can find them there. Grab it by the tiniest little bit. So I'll probably spend all this time doing this, right? And then I'll spray it. And the spray will get under the tape somewhere, and it'll be like, why did I even bother? Or not. I mean, it might turn out okay. Push that down a little bit again. It continues to be this tiniest little clip there. Okay, I need some right there too. Otherwise, the whole thing will be painted, and then right there in the middle there'll be a red rectangle. That would be bad. If what was it, Earl Scheib? I think it's Earl Scheib who used to paint, the car painting. I don't know if they're still around anymore. I guess I can say that out loud, Earl Scheib, because I don't know if they're around anymore or not. If they are, well, there you go. You got a mention. Oh, thank you for the follow. I really appreciate it. Thanks for dropping in too. I know I'd been away for a while on a trip, and now I'm back, and I'm putting tiny bits of tape on a little piece of plastic so that the windscreen can be painted so that I can finish the Savoia and move on to probably back to the Apollo so I can finish that. And then I'm going to build a race car. But in between, I'm going to be working on the maxi fig of me, all Seth Ralph from our Dungeons and Dragons show. So I'm glad I looked up. Thanks so much for the follow. So what I'm doing here is masking the windscreen for the Savoia S.21. And there's a flaw. Dang, I wonder if that's going to show. Got it. Okay. So I masked the outside, and I know I probably shouldn't have to do this. I think even super duper master modelers don't. Maybe I'm wrong. But I'm going to mask the inside as well, because the metal frame goes, it's on the inside and the outside, right? And even if it's painted on the outside, if someone were to look in, I don't know why you don't let them get that close. You would see that it's not painted on the inside, so that the metal doesn't come through. So I think, why not? I'm going to try. Excuse me. I'm going to try to repeat what I've just done, but on the inside of this. The inside doesn't have to be quite as precise. Because, it's much harder to see. But it should still be good. I should still do good quality taping. So let me just show everybody again to show that there's actually progress being made. This is the Savoia S.21. That's the bottom of the wing. And this will go on here, across the way, of course. And I would have done that already, except that the windscreen gets installed right there. And then the gun sight gets installed right there. Those tiny little spots are little holes in the fuselage. And when I was doing a little bit of test fitting, I just found that if I put the wing on, there's no way that I can get that done. So I'm going to put those on first and then install the wing. And this has come out, I would say, it's looking really pretty good. The only thing is I've got a flaw right there in the paint there. That's really bothering me, but I don't know what I can do about it. In fact, I don't think I can do anything about it. So it'll just have to be a little hidden thing. That'll be the A becomes an A minus kind of flaw. But otherwise, the striping came out pretty well on the tail, I think, and the wing. And when the wing goes on like that, that'll look pretty good. And then the engine goes on the top. And this entire fuselage, you can see it's open on the. Okay, it's contact cemented on, but it's not hard, and I'll have to be careful of that. It's hollow on the inside because it actually sits on top of a highly detailed canopy interior that's in a box over there. So when I set this up for display, such as it is, such as the display will be, I'm going to leave this off of the rest of it so that you can, so it doesn't, so the rest of it can be seen. That's it. Visible. So it will be visible. And besides that, it doesn't fit that well. The two parts, the top and the bottom, don't really fit together that well. Great, huh? Okay. So now I go back to making a really sharp angle. Be a little less concerned about having a very sharp point on this one, because it is on the inside. And it's so much on the inside and attached that will be the least visible part. Pretty much what I'm trying to do is match this inside tape with the outside tape. as I just keep flopping it around in my fingers. It's kind of slippery, is what it is. I mean, it's tiny and it's slippery. And in this case, oh, it's not good. It's not right. I'm going to fix it by pushing the tape back because you can't see what happened. But what happened is that the tape met the tape. That is, this tape I just put on made contact with the tape from the outside and it stuck. So if I try to pull it off, it's going to pull the other tape off too. And I don't want to do that because it's okay. Hand cramp, yay. If I get this piece on, I have to clean my clipper again. Oh, yeah, I got the angle backward. That was clever. I don't know why it's become so much harder to hold on to. Okay, I'm going to clean this off. Clean these little bits of tape off here. Wonder what I just pulled off. Okay, yep. It's kind of one of those things I was afraid of is it just popped right out of my finger. Almost went flying. Well, it did go flying, but it almost went flying like into a place I couldn't find it. Fortunately, it popped into a place where I could find it. So there will be a thin edge of red there, which is what I want. Field here, I don't want red paint on the edge. The edge is clear. Okay, I need to do this on the other side, and then the thing in the middle. I do need to get all the tape off of this. It gets in the way of the cutting edge, and then it doesn't cut. So I'm doing this and going silent because, walking and chewing gum at the same time, kind of an issue. Um, holding on to something and holding on to something else. I have fingers. They work. Sure, they do. And there's a cat hair. We have a cat. It has hair. Its hair comes off. Its hair is there. I'm doing a Dr. Seuss thing. There, cat hair. What are you adhering? It hasn't gone away. It just moved. For some reason, this is being very difficult. Just I know you can't see anything that's going on. I apologize for that. But I have to see what's going on. And so far, it's going very poorly. Just can't get it at all to behave. It is really close to being okay. Okay. The part that's not good is probably the part that can't be seen. So it's not too bad. And then from this side, so what's going on the other side? What is this? Whatever that is, it's a problem. There. It over. What I'm getting are these little bits of tape that had kind of extended over. Yeah, they got wrapped around. Okay, I'm just going to call that okay. Try to figure out. Have to retape that. Tape's not adhering. Okay. These bits of excess tape are just going to be a problem. I'm going to try to get them trimmed down as much as I can. Oh yeah, here. The rest of this. I have to clean off my clippers again. So to explain again why it is I'm going through all these contortions is that the canopy isn't a canopy, I keep calling it that. The windscreen really on the Savoia is clear glass or plexiglass, whatever material they were using then to make this. And it has I believe it would be a metal frame that was painted red, the same color as the fuselage. But, the frame is a tiny bit of it. And if it's going to be painted red, the rest of it can't be painted red. It has to be not red. And so I'm covering up the parts that are going to not be painted with these little tiny bits of tape, so that the paint, hopefully, will not go where the tape is. That's the point, is to tape it so that the paint doesn't go where the tape is. and it only goes where the tape isn't. And it doesn't help to have little bits of tape stuck to one's fingers. And the tweezers are supposed to help, but they never do. They really just don't, because the tape sticks to the tweezers and not to the surface to which it's being applied. That's not good, really. It's not a useful thing. That's not cutting very well because there's tape all over the cutting edge. What I'm doing here is squeezing it right on the back end so that paint doesn't get on the edge there. Okay, now what's happening here is not helpful. Okay, what's happening there is that that piece of tape decides that it's not adhering. Now I need to the middle part. It's supposedly the simpler of them because it's rectangular, not pointy, but I discovered that that isn't necessarily the case. Sorry. What happened is I've got this head magnifier thing on, and I moved my head, and it was a little bit out of focus, and it was a hall of mirrors distortion effect. It was that wasn't real. That was almost stomach turning. That would have been a surprisingly weird addition to the stream. Not even close. Okay, I'm gonna try this. I'm folding the end of that tape over so it doesn't. Should have done that before. Now the tweezers won't stick because they're not on a sticky thing. Try that one more time on the other side. Stuck in the middle. And the technique, and I'll share it with you. When the tweezers sticks to the tape, I folded it over a little bit. See, like that. So it's not sticky. I have to congratulate myself for wasting hours and hours of not having done that. Let's hang it up on the ends, and then I will trim off most of this, because otherwise it's just going to be sticky and in the way. Okay. This is where I'll do something like break it, right? But before I paint this, I'll run my finger or toothpick or something over the edges of the tape again to make sure that they're, pretty solidly attached, that they're masking as they should be, because that's called masking tape, because it's masking. And then I'm going to spray the inside first, like that. Probably do it twice, because I don't want to put too much paint on and have it run. And then flip it over and do the other side, and then unmask it and hopefully go, wow, that looks really good. Let's do final assembly on the Savoia. What's the plan? So this is where I stop playing with that. Oh, straighten up my back. Clean up a little bit. So thank you for bearing with me as I put tiny bits of tape on a little piece of plastic. I didn't need these. That's probably just as well. I think Alexis bought this, and I'm not sure for what. Probably not for what I was doing. But this is a really good clipper. It's not a nail clipper. I mean, it could be, I suppose. But those are really nice, sharp edges. They come together nicely. They cut straighter at an angle. It was probably couldn't have done it without it. If I'd used scissors, it would have been not good. I'm trying to put the tape back in the envelope, right? There. I know it can be done because it was in there. There we go. It is sort of a thing I need to do is complain about, oh, this is achy or that, or, hand cramps or something like that. But then I need to remind myself that I'm ancient and that my hands are steady enough to actually be doing this at all is something to be grateful for. So I'm being grateful for that. Okay. Between now and Wednesday at more or less 10 o'clock, I will be painting that. And then on Wednesday, I will be unmasking it and then either celebrating or bemoaning the situation. I'm not sure which one it'll be. Got little bits of tape everywhere. This is when it's good that they stick to the tweezers. Okay, what I'm going to do, I've got this nice little box. This is the box where the gun sight is located. This actually goes into the little slot that you can't see anymore because it's taped up on the windscreen. It's right there. And that's how the gun sight works. It's just straight along the fuselage, stuck right in the middle of the windscreen. So you're supposed to sight along it. And then after that's painted, I will need to try to get it to adhere to that. There's a tiny little bitty prong here, positioning pin that is going to get painted. Will probably be too big for the hole. So I will be, what I really should do is I should just take it off. Here, let me test fit it. I'm going to see what I'm getting into here. Odds are like way more than 90% that little positioning pin is not going to fit in that hole because there's paint. There'll be paint on the pin and paint in the hole. Maybe I'm wrong. That's where that goes anyway. Okay. It's a little opaque now, which means that if someone were flying this plane, their vision would be obscured. But that's where it goes, and you can see when this is painted red how it will match the fuselage. And then this little bit, that bit there goes there, and then slides in through the windshield quite a ways, actually, almost to the back of it. So you don't want to get, you want to be able to sight along it, so you want it kind of close to your face, but, buffeting air or something and poke you right in the eye. Put an eye out. That would be bad. I want to put this in here, minimizing the opportunity for it to get lost. And then look at this again and say, unfortunately, that flaw there is just going to have to stay. I can't fix it. So that's going to be my, well, you were doing A work, but now it's an A minus. But no one's going to see it because it's on the bottom. And I keep bumping into that. It's attached. I attached that with contact cement, and it would be fine if I didn't keep banging into it, but I did. Let me see if I can reposition it without it coming off. I might need to, no, it's hanging in there. As long as no one smashes it with their fingers like I keep doing, it should be okay. All right. Well, I'm not going to make any promises because usually they don't work out. But I will say this is a possibility. I'll just present it as a something that might happen. What might happen is that on Wednesday I'll unmask the windshield and it will look really good. And then I'll test fit it and it will set on there really well. And I'll attach it with this. I'm going to use the world's best canopy adhesive. That's how this is advertised. Which is supposed to be clear and stick it on there without clouding the clear plastic. And then if that works, then I'll put on the gun sight. Okay, I need to. I hope it goes through. I hope the hole in the windshield is more than big enough for the gun sight to go through, because if it's not, I should test fit that before I put it on. Okay, I'm walking through the many steps that I will have to go through to hopefully not have a happy ending to this. I want a happy ending to the Savoia. Is that when I unmask the windshield, it's going to look great. Then I will test fit the gun sight to make sure it actually fits through the little hole in the windshield, because if it doesn't, I'm going to have to bore it out, which is not impossible, but not something I'd prefer to do. And then once I know that works, I'll attach the windscreen to the fuselage, and then I will attach the gun sight to the fuselage, and then I can attach the wing, and after the wing is attached, I can attach the engine, and when that's done, it'll be done. And then I'll get out the other parts that are sitting in the done box, okay, and I will show you how it would be displayed, because I'm not going to show it displayed completely assembled. I'm going to show it displayed so that the fuselage is separate from the bottom of it, so you can admire the detail of the interior of the fuselage. And I'm going to leave the engine access hatches off as well, so that you can see the detail of the engine. So the parts that are separable, okay, that are not cemented together so that they can be put on or taken off, I'm going to leave off so that the detail underneath can be seen. Oh, what time is it? I'm starting to fade here already. I think I'd mentioned I was gone and came back over the weekend and I'm still jet lagged. Here, you can look at a paper towel. I'll bring this guy back. Okay. I need to do something with the face. It looks lifeless. I don't know. Maybe it needs a little bit of wash, some highlights maybe. I'll have to consult before I do anything with it. I'll consult with Nicole, who plays Zoya Ansul in our show, and knows what she's doing because she's an artist. And so I'm sure she'll have some ideas about how to make the face look less flat. I mean, just some shading under what it needs is a makeup artist. Okay. A little bit of rouge or something on the cheeks, a little something on the lips, maybe. Not much, just a little bit to show off the contours of the face. And I have glasses. There they are. This will allow me to see. It's noon. Okay. Well, I didn't have to take the break I was afraid I would have to take. because, as I said, I was dog watching, and as a result of dog watching, they didn't do what they needed to do, and so I was concerned that I would have to take a break to take care of that, but I didn't. Okay, cloak. The cloak is going to require all sorts of special painting, highly skilled painting. Oh, this is weird. I don't know how I'm going to handle this. Okay. So what's happening here is you can see the edge of the cloak comes up, right? Like that. And you would think, this is the edge of the cloak, continuous. This is armor. But then it transforms almost like an Escher painting. The edge of the cloak transforms into the very top of the shoulder. And it's the same thing on both sides. The edge of the cloak comes up, and it doesn't just end. Sort of, but it transforms itself into the top of the armor. That maybe is it like a strap that comes across and attaches? Because the cloak goes underneath it here. It is. It's like one of these loops you make when you take a piece of strip paper and make a half turn and attach it, and it has no inside or outside. So pretty clearly, this is the cloak that goes under the armor here. But then the cloak is that thing under which it goes. So I'm not sure if that gets how that's supposed to be painted. And then there's this thing here, which is obviously not armor, but it looks like it's continuous with this. So maybe this is all mithril plate. I guess that's just painted separately. And then there's some leather under here and some leather on the elbows. The rest of this is all metal. Looks like there's a little bits of leather that show there and there. I'm thinking maybe I need to paint those first, because it's only on this side. There's nothing really showing there. Okay. Well, what I am going to do is my character's offhand is a magic blade, just like the flaming longsword. It's ice, and I need to paint that. I need to put some blue on there. And I did this once before. I did it on the Savoia exhaust system, where the exhaust is supposed to be slightly blue from the heat. And I used the speed paint stuff, and it worked pretty well. I can. Purple's not it. Bone's not it. Blue is that. As I sort of dry brushed a little blue onto it. Sorry, I'm getting up because I need to throw some things away, but more importantly, I have used up my palette, not in my mouth. You can tell this is a high expense, really, expensive production here. Most of what I use, the brushes, I invest in decent brushes, and I did spend money on this little saw, which turned out to be really important to cut things off of the sprues, and sometimes even doing some trim work. A good set of needle files, you definitely want to have those. But to fold the paint, I bought these little plastic pellet things. Zoom out camera two. There we go. The camera guy's doing a great job today. Made in China. Might not be able to get these anymore. These last quite a while because I clean them off. I think these were designed, if you're doing like a third grade painting class or something, right? You're just doing an art class. Is all the students get one, and when they're done with them, they throw them away. But I can make these last probably at least 6 to 9, sometimes 9 months. Pretty impressive conservation of resources there. I'm going to try to do, and likely fail, is that I'm going to try to make it go from dark to light. So it's darker here and lighter here. So I'm going to put it on and then brush it away. Let's see what happens. If it doesn't work, I can't paint over this, okay, because it dissolves in other paint. Actually, that might work, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But I'm using this to try to make this look icy. I've got fire and ice going. In some of the creatures that we were battling, so Alexis is really very clever in terms of coming up with adversaries. A mad scientist, you always have to have one of those, right? In this case, it was a real scientist, not like a sorcerer or a wizard. Infused corpses with mercury, and somehow or other kept them alive, but they became immune to fire. In fact, fire somehow healed them. Discovered that the hard way with this sword. But because this is a magic sword, it's possible I can just say flame off, okay, and then it's not flaming anymore. And I have cold oil that I could apply to the blade. So in most of the combat in the last, 20, 30 sessions or something, when we've run into these goopy mercury infused corpses, I haven't been able to use the flame effect. Not until pretty recently, I think. But my model has this, just not necessarily that the flame is on all the time, but just to show that that's the weapon I possess. But I was actually able to turn it into a cold weapon by putting cold oil on it and not turning on the flame. Okay, I'm going to be sort of dry brushing this on, so I don't need very much. And I will probably be like trying to keep hardly any on my brush. See how it looks. Blue. Were an artist, I would know what I was doing, and it would look artistic. It's not too bad, though. No, I mean, that's not too bad. The shading's not too bad. We'll see what I can do with this side. Just a little bit of blue on the blade. It looked good on this side. It's a little dark. This little dark spot right up there at the hilt. I think that looks good. Okay. Well, it looks better than it did. Kind of like how it came out. Definitely has blue on it. Yeah, no, get to clean this off. I ended a little early today. I'm not entirely sure what to do. Well, one thing what I could do, the base coat on the armor, notwithstanding this issue of where does the cloak end and the armor begin, okay, which is sort of clear here and not at all really clear here at all. Is I could right. What I'm trying to see here is if I paint I really need to paint the brown in there before I put the metal on because it's just too hard to reach. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to paint the leather bits on the knees and the elbows and a tiny little bit here, there, where the breastplate and the shoulders come together. I'm going to paint those now. Sometimes what I've done is I've used leather brown, which does not look much like leather, but when you put a wash on it, it does look like leather. Or I could use a slightly darker brown with a wash. It can't be real dark because the wash has to show. The color chart is buried here. I think this is something I can do near the end of the stream as I'm getting a little bit tired without causing a mess. See, this is the leather brown, which really does look quite good with a brown wash on it. The alternative would be something like the red brown or even the flat earth. I'm going to do that. See, this is a kind of yellowish. I like that. I'm going to use the cork brown. I'm going to use the cork brown with a wash. That will be the thing I'm going to do. And I don't need to be extremely careful with it because I'll be painting around it. So I want to get the paint into, the spots there. I'm going to use a slightly larger brush than I would normally use for this kind of detail thing. And I will be getting some of the brown paint onto where it's going to be metallic later. But that is as it is. Now I have to find pork brown paint. Not yet. That's it. Huh. It only took 2 tries. That was actually pretty shocking. Usually it takes much more effort than that to find the paint that I want. Of course, part of it is because I've been making some effort to actually put the paints away after I use them. Not totally successful, because if you were to look around the bench here, you would see paint scattered all over the place. So while I'm doing this, I'm going to talk about Dyson Dungeons, which I haven't done since I've been gone. I haven't talked about it while I've been gone at all, at least not on the stream, because there hasn't been a stream because I haven't been here doing the stream. Amazing how those things work or don't work. So Dyson Dungeons is a group of family and friends, and we put on the most amazing Dungeons and Dragons show that you can imagine. I'm not exaggerating very much at all, actually. It really is an amazing show. We have a lot of fun producing it, and people who have watched it have had a lot of fun watching it. And that streams on Twitch most Sundays at 2 o'clock, and all of the old episodes are available on YouTube, and you can even listen to them as a podcast, because believe it or not, it works that way. I mean, it will work as a podcast, which tells you something about the fun we have putting the show together. And this stream started because we produce our own dungeon tiles on the 3D printers and minifigs that all appear in the show. And our DM, Alexis, thought it would be a grand idea, since all that painting is happening anyway, why not stream it? And so I got some surplus equipment here. I got a microphone that's not usable in the show, and a Ring camera, which kind of works here, and another camera up there, and some used monitors, and a Stream Deck that doesn't work. I got the secondhand stuff. I got a bunch of secondhand stuff. And Alexis set it up so that it would sort of, if I keep things on camera, which doesn't always happen, but if I keep things on camera and I keep chatting, then this becomes a streaming thing as well. And it didn't take any extra time on my part, because I would be doing this anyway. Yeah, it's a good thing I'm doing this first, just reaching in to these spots. Just even getting in there, bumping the brush against, like there. Don't do that if you're modeling. Okay, use a cloth. Now I got paint on my thumb because I got impatient and I just cleaned it off that way. That was a don't do that kind of event. So that's how this got started. And when there weren't any minifigs or dungeon tiles to paint, she pointed out that I bought hundreds of dollars worth of models when I first retired, thinking I'd be bored silly and that would be something to do that would be relatively inoffensive to anybody else. and non-destructive. But I never built any of them really. And so she said, well, okay, you don't have anything else. You want to keep the painting stream going, build a model. So I built had Big Daddy Roth Fink Eliminator, which I thought came out really well. It was something I did when I was a young teen, like a freshman in high school kind of thing. And I built like 6 or 7 of those when I was back then. They were the best models I ever built when I was young. Anyway, yeah, so I built that, and that wasn't that much. No one really wanted to watch that. There doesn't seem to be any Big Daddy Roth cult out there anymore like there was back in the 1960s. But so then I built a Renwall submarine, which I need to show off some year. That was an original vintage kits from the 60s. I bought 3 of them so that I had enough usable parts to build one, and it came out, I think, pretty well. Much better when I first built it, when I was like in 8th grade, I think. Did a much better job than I did back then. And I have almost finished an Apollo stack, which what I mean by that is that's the command module, the service module, the lunar module, both components of that, and the escape tower. It's a really nice model. I'm glad I bought it. And it was a little bit challenging to build. It stopped because I wanted, oh man. I just thought I bumped a brush against my flames. Maybe I did, but I don't see it. I have to be really careful. One of the oops features of this stream is that most of the oopses happen getting the brush to or from work surface. So you can see that brown it's not a very good brown, but when it's washed with an umber wash, it looks okay. It looks pretty leathery. What's this together? Can't really see where the leather part is. I think actually goes up along here. If it doesn't, I can paint over it. And I think that's a strap. It's supposed to be a strap holding this on. In fact, I think that's the case here as well. To ask, before I wash it and finish painting it, I have to get an opinion about how this really is coming together here. And I think that's how this is working. And I think that this leather underneath, and they're like attached somehow. It just looks that way. It looks like there's some musculature there. Well, it helps to get the base coat on here so that I can get an opinion about what, before I put the wash on it to make it look like leather, and before I paint the rest, is to get kind of an expert opinion about what is and what isn't the metallic armor. Hmm. Yep, that's what happens when you start looking at things a little more carefully, is that they become less rather than more obvious. So I know that that's a little messy, but it that's how I think the armor kind of fits together. Okay, well, I can always put more what will become leather-looking paint on there later, if necessary. But at least it gives a suggestion about how. Oh, yeah, I think same thing here. I used to know the names of these things. Gauntlets. I think those are gauntlets, as opposed to pauldrons. The gauntlets are down here, and the pauldrons are up there. And I think I'm getting this right. This isn't flesh. Okay, this isn't the guy's skin that I'm painting. It's a leather undershirt. And I'm pretty sure that this is what the intent is. All right. Okay. So it's just an undercoat, and it's kind of messy. But I need to have somebody else look at it. Hi, who? I will do a flip, and after I do a flip, I'll probably be wrapping up because. Yeah, I just need the dogs. Yeah, I'm dog watching. I mentioned that earlier several times, and one of them did, and one of them didn't do what they needed to do. So I don't know how well they're behaving right now. But this is a good time to do a flip, and then I can do a recap. This is there's a tradition in the show that when Who comes on, asks for a flip, and then I have this little box of things that I can flip. There's some bigger things like this, and then there's if I've got some things on here that are delicate, I can flip a tiny little thing like that. I don't have anything really delicate here. I think I'm going to do living or not living. This is a Schrodinger flip. Okay. And I know there's a request for 3 flips, but I usually do 2 sets of 3, so there'll be 6 flips. And that's a not living and a living. Not living. Not living is winning 2-1. Tied. Usually okay, 3-2. And then sometimes that happens. Find out if I can find it. There it is. Not living is winning 3-2. So this is we'll see what happens. Oh, living. It's a perfect tie. So that's either living or not. in equal measure. Okay. So what I'm going to be doing between now and Wednesday is, if you look in here, okay, I'm going to ask my camera guy to zoom in. Zoom. Good zooming. Is I put little tiny bits of tape on this little piece of plastic, and there are parts of it that aren't taped, and they're going to turn red, and then it will look like the windscreen has clear plexiglass or glass and a metal frame painted to match the fuselage. That's what it will look like. And then on Wednesday, I will unmask it. And if everything came out okay, I'm going to do the final assembly on the Savoia. That'll be pretty cool. So everybody should, because I've been gone for a while, word should get out on social media. I don't do that myself, but word should get out that the Savoia is very likely to be can't promise for sure, because something can happen. Things can happen. But if nothing really bad happens, okay, in terms of the construction of this thing and the painting, I should be able to finish the Savoia on Wednesday, and then I can show that off. And that'll be a celebration. Then I can continue working on this. I'm going to get some advice about what's really leather and what isn't. What to do about this weird cloak thing, this Escher-like cloak transformation from cloak to armor. About whether I should try to put a demarcation on that or just, I'm not sure. But then I can start base coating the armor. The other thing I can do, and at some point I need to do this, is that Savoia S.21 came with a minifig of Porco Rosso. And I haven't painted that. It's just been sitting here the entire time of construction. And I'm kind of tempted that instead of working on Elseth Ralph's maxi fig, maybe both, I'll be doing some work on this. I'll probably do both because oftentimes painting something like this, one needs to wait for paint to dry, okay, a certain color to dry before moving on to another color. But this is a pretty nice minifig, and it's got this little base. I had to figure out how to paint the base. And there's even a decal that says Porco Rosso on it that I can put on the base. And then Porco Rosso will stand there, stand as a figure, admiring his Savoia. This is not to scale with the Savoia. There is actually another Porco Rosso minifig sitting inside the Savoia right now. This is just a display Porco. But I might work on that too. So that's what I'm hoping will happen on Wednesday, is that I will finish the Savoia. I'm hoping that will happen. And then I'll work on this and the Porco Rosso minifig. But at some point, fairly soon, I need to finish the Apollo, and I can spend some time explaining what the issue is with that. And then the next thing I'm going to build is a race car. So what have I got left? Like half an hour? Okay. I'll do two things. A big Porco. Yeah. What I need is a giant Porco plushie, right? So who is actually the person who gave me the model? This was the Porco Rosso, the Savoia was a gift from who? So you could see that that's coming along. Okay. But I'll let you just keep looking at this because I want to show you some other things here. So the Apollo should have been finished a long time ago, but it wasn't because the instrument panel that comes with the model absolutely totally sucks. It is both, well, It's just bad in every way. It is very lightly embossed with the instruments on the panel, but it's not embossed in an accurate fashion. Comparing the embossing to pictures of the actual instrument panel, they don't match. The other is that you can't really see the embossing on its own, and the embossing is way too shallow for I think anybody to paint. I mean, to hand paint it. So what I have done is I found some pictures of the actual instrument panel and scaled them down to the same size as the instrument panel on the model. I've shown that to some people before. It's sitting over there. And I'm going to put that, print that high definition printing on some ski back paper and basically make instrument panel stickers. And then once those are done, then I'll be able to finish assembling the command module, which is the last bit that needs to be finished. That's not accurate, actually. There's another little bit that needs to be done. The enclosure for the lunar module needs to have the hinges attached. But I haven't printed out the stickers. I just started doing the Savoia instead and never got back to it. So that needs to be done, and then I can show off the Apollo. And maybe I'll find the submarine and show that off. But then build this. This is the just switching completely. This is another vintage model, actually. This is a remake of the original vintage model that I built when I was a kid. I've been doing all these things that I was reliving my childhood here. This is the Lotus Ford that won, I think, the 1965 Indianapolis 500. Okay. And I built this model when it first came out and found a reissue of it. Okay. And the reissue itself is actually quite old. And I decided I'm going to do this next because, well, for a couple of reasons. One is it's small enough, like the Savoia, to actually display, unlike the submarine and the Apollo, which are both too big to do anything with. I'm not sure what's going to come of those. The thing about this model, though, I'm going to just chat about it a little bit. Chat about this model is that it's not at all historically accurate. I mean, it's just wrong. What's all this about Indy decals? These are extra. Oh, these are extra decals for the ads on the side. Okay, so this model is like totally wrong. Not totally wrong, but really quite wrong. The actual car is located in Dearborn, Michigan. I had a chance many years ago to take some pictures of it with an old Polaroid camera of all things. And it got the number right. It's 82. But there are really important things that are not right. One is, example, the exhaust. There's so many chrome parts in this. It's like you open the model kit and it's just a box full of chrome parts. Nothing on the original was really chromed. So I'm doing a bunch of modifications for that. One is that, as you can see here, the exhaust is yellow. It's not chrome. So that has to be done. I'm going to buff it down and paint it yellow. The other is, you can see some of the interior here. The interior was not green with a yellow stripe. Definitely not. It was reddish leather. It's a reddish leather. There are pipes on the inside of it that are painted red. The dashboard is kind of this reddish color. with, and I have to see what the model is like, but they are black dials with that's probably the only thing that is chrome, but I think they're just the polished aluminum bezels. Okay. You can see that suspension, the suspension was made out of steel, I think. Front and back, and that wasn't chromed. The only thing that might have been chromed is maybe the roll bar. Here you've got the exhaust stacks on either side of the engine. No, those aren't the exhaust stacks. Duh. Those are the air intakes. Those are velocity tubes. It wasn't fuel injected. Velocity tubes brought the air in, and those would not have been chromed. The side view mirrors and stuff. So I've looked at these images, which is the real car. Okay. And other images that were posted online of the car at Indianapolis, and nothing. Okay, so I'm going to be spending a lot of time dechroming this and repainting these things aluminum color or yellow. Yeah, so there's that. I mean, they just made it look shiny, which is not accurate at all. And the wheels were not chromed. In fact, the wheels were kind of dark colored on the inside and lighter on the outside. These photos were taken quite some time ago, but I think if I have a chance to go back before I really get into this, I'd like to take pictures of it. Not with an ancient Polaroid camera, but with something a little bit, more modern, like a phone, so that I can do it more accurately. But so this is going to get modified so it doesn't look wrong. Like the exhaust will be yellow, the seats will be that red leather color. Okay, the dashboard will be right. The inside of the cockpit will be right. The wheels will be right. The parts they got wrong here will be made correct. Will be corrected. But I've decided I'm going to do that next after I'm finished with the Savoia and the Apollo. Just keeping on the same nostalgia track kind of thing. And hopefully it will come out okay. We'll see. But I want to thank everybody for coming back. Like I got back and was restarting the stream. I think I'll be missing one more week sometime this summer, but otherwise, a day here or there, I'll announce those in advance. But for the most part, I am planning to be back to the Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from more or less 10 o'clock to do the stream. And I'm looking forward to doing that. Yeah, I think, the frost blade came out okay. It's not great. I need to do a little, I don't know. I think maybe I'll touch that up a little bit on the blade. It's just not being an artist, sometimes things just don't come out right. Well, yeah. If you've been watching this stream at all in the past, you can tell that I start getting cold near the end of it. I don't know why that is. Right about 12:15, I just start getting chilled. And that's happening again. I need to remember to bring my down vest down with me when I do this. Okay, I'm going to wrap up a little bit early today because there's nothing much more I can do on this until I get some advice about how to paint, what should be painted what in terms of the armor, and some advice about how to enliven the face, putting some highlights on it that I may or may not be able to be technically capable of doing. I'll be painting the windshield between now and Wednesday, and on Wednesday unmasking it and hopefully completing the final assembly of the Savoia. And that will be great. It'll be done except for the Porco Rosso minifig, and I might start working on that just so that the whole model is kind of complete. Following that, I will somehow force myself to complete the Apollo, and in the interim, I'll be making some progress on my figure here of Ulsith Ralph, my character in our Dungeons and Dragons show. So thanks, everybody. Let everybody know that this stream is back and should be continuing more or less as planned for a while now. And thank you for the new follow. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I really don't have anything more to say or do. So yeah, I will wrap up a little bit early today. Oh yeah, I need to say that. For some reason, the social media stuff, whatever, for the stream says it goes from 10 until 2. That has not been the case for many months now. I used to go from 10 until 2 with a break in between that went on all way too long, and now I'm just going from 10 until 1, usually without a break, sometimes a very short break if I need one. I've been getting more done that way, and yeah, it's just been working better. So at some point, I'll ask those who know how to fix these things or change them to change it so that the stream goes from 10 until 1, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Thanks, everybody. I'll be back on Wednesday. Take care. See you then.